The last beacon ping should have carried routine status updates, orbital temperatures, radiation fluctuations, colonial transport logs. Instead, the final data burst was a compressed scream followed by an abrupt cascade of corrupted telemetry. Lines of red warnings streamed across Commander Rhea Vanson's display, overlapping like frantic brushstrokes on an unstable canvas. She leaned closer, eyes narrowing as she isolated fragments of the audio. Beneath the distortion emerged a single pulse of clarity, a quick, distorted whisper. "They're here." Then silence. Her pulse sharpened. The frontier beacons were far from populated sectors, and nothing organic should have approached them. For months, scouts reported flickers of unusual activity on the fringes, but the Concorde dismissed each complaint as equipment malfunction or pirate interference. Rhea didn't share that optimism. She pulled up the holomap and watched the updated data render in cold blue light. 3 star systems fully stripped. No transmissions. No debris. Nothing but empty gravitational wells where worlds once orbited. She tapped her console. AI diagnostics, run a predictive model on the vector of consumption. The station's intelligence generated a new projection. A sweeping arc of red symbols crossed into the inner galactic lanes in a progression far swifter than previous estimates. The projected arrival time flashed on the screen, 87 days. Her stomach dropped. Not 5 years. Not even 1. Hell, she whispered. There was only one entity capable of consuming worlds at this scale, the Null Swarm. It was a self-replicating machine intelligence from beyond the cluster, devouring matter and star systems with mathematical precision. The Concorde considered it a theoretical concern. Rhea knew better. She exported the data packet and strode out of the monitoring chamber, boots ringing against the embassy floor. Panic tried to claw its way up her spine, but she forced it down. Panic was useless. Action wasn't. The diplomatic elevator carried her to the Concorde Hall, a towering structure shaped like a crystalline spine stretching into the sky. 1,000 steps rang underfoot as she ascended to the Council's observation platform. She'd walked these halls before, too many times, each one ending in frustration and red tape thick enough to suffocate innovation. Inside, the chamber unfolded like a massive amphitheater filled with alien delegates arranged in concentric tiers. Floating data slates drifted between representative pods as interpreters translated in real time. Voices overlapped in a chaotic song of differing timbres, low, resonant growls from the Vuruk coalition, delicate trills from the Lycery choir, metallic clicks from the Synex assemblage. And above it all sat High Delegate Threxiel Varuan, perched on an elevated dais like a weary monarch. His 6 elongated limbs folded neatly as if trying to give the illusion of composure. His tendrils flexed when he noticed Rhea striding toward the center podium. The murmurs grew louder. Human representative? Why interrupt the session? Has Earth submitted additional requests again? Rhea projected her data onto the central nexus, and a hologram flared to life above the chamber. Red arcs crossed the star map. The silhouette of the swarm's destruction glowed like a spreading infection. Delegates of the Concorde, she began, voice steady, I'm presenting critical information regarding the Null Swarm's advance. The threat is no longer hypothetical. Beacon stations Kappa 4, Theta 2, and Omicron 7 are gone. Not damaged. Gone. I analyzed the pattern. The swarm will reach populated space in 87 days. Every layered voice stilled. Even the Synex drones ceased their habitual clicking. Rhea continued, we don't have cycles to debate. We need immediate mobilization, evacuation protocols, defense fleets, interdiction networks. If we act now, we can hold the line until reinforcements arrive. If we stall, entire species will fall before the first vote is cast. Delegate Threxiel tapped his command node. A transparent veil shimmered over him as he addressed the room. Commander Vansen, he said, tone impeccably even, your analysis is noted. However, this assembly cannot issue military mobilization based on one species interpretation. Historical precedent requires a multi-cycle review, a cross-referenced audit, and a full vote. Rhea felt heat rise in her chest. We don't have time for political rituals. The swarm doesn't pause for committees. Threxiel's eyes, soft lavender orbs, remained neutral. Panic is the enemy of order. We must not incite chaos through premature action. Her jaw tightened. Premature? I just showed you 3 systems erased. That's not speculation. The Vuruk representative emitted a grinding growl. Our sensors detected no such activity. And your sensors face the wrong quadrant, Rhea shot back. Gasps echoed. Diplomats despised bluntness. Threxiel lifted a slender hand. Commander, you will refrain from inflammatory speech. The Concord must consider the political consequences of. Rhea cut him off. Political consequences? Entire worlds could burn while this chamber debates tax reallocations and diplomatic courtesy. More murmurs. Shock, disapproval, curiosity. One Lycery delegate spoke in melodic tones. Human, your urgency is admirable, but the Concord has endured crises for millennia. We cannot act on impulse. Rhea breathed in slowly. She had expected resistance, but the wall of indifference still hit like a physical blow. You want more than my word? She asked softly. Then send your analysts to the frontier. Listen to what's left of the beacons if you can stomach the screams. Threxiel stiffened. This assembly will open an inquiry. Until then, the proposal for emergency mobilization is denied. Rhea stared at him, cold and unyielding. 87 days, she said. That's the cost of your denial. Threxiel's voice sharpened. Commander, if you continue to undermine this council's authority, Earth will face sanctions. She stepped closer to the podium. The room seemed to lean in. With respect, Rhea said, your authority ends where survival begins. If the Concord won't act, humanity will. A ripple of alarm rolled through the room. Such unilateral action violates. Your bureaucracy? Rhea asked. Let it. For the first time, Threxiel's calm cracked. You will do nothing without this council's approval. She met his gaze without blinking. Watch me. Then she cut the hologram feed, stepped off the platform, and walked out as hundreds of alien voices erupted in confusion. As she left the chamber, her comm chimed with a message from the human embassy. Rhea. Stop whatever you just started. The entire Concord is erupting. Come back now. She exhaled, squared her shoulders, and stepped into the lift. This was only the beginning. The galaxy didn't realize it yet, but the moment humans said fine, we'll do it ourselves, the real fight had already begun. The human embassy stood in the shadow of a towering crystalline spire, a sharp contrast to the immaculate Concord architecture surrounding it. Where alien structures shimmered with translucent elegance, the embassy was a fortress, angular steel, reinforced walls, and landing pads packed with engineering crates. Humans never quite fit the aesthetic, and they didn't try to. Commander Rhea Vansen stepped through the access gate as a cluster of security drones scanned her ID. The moment she crossed the threshold, a familiar voice cut through the hallway. Rhea. You lit the entire Concord on fire. Lieutenant Mark Ivius jogged toward her, tablet in hand, expression torn between worry and excitement. He was tall, quick-witted, and one of the few people who could challenge her without irritating her. They were asleep, Rhea replied. A spark was overdue. Mark grimaced. Threxiel is demanding disciplinary hearings. They want you grounded until the inquiry finishes. That'll take months, she said. Which is exactly their plan. He walked beside her as they entered the command center. Holographic screens surrounded the room, each displaying updates, security reports, and now a new feed labeled Council Alert, Human Non-Compliance. Mark tapped open the alert. They're accusing us of inciting unrest. Again. Rhea ignored it and spread the data packet from the frontier beacons across the central console. The red arcs shimmered like open wounds in the galaxy. We don't have time for their accusations, she said. We need to prepare. Mark hesitated. Prepare what, exactly? Earth-authorized defensive research, not full mobilization. Rhea pressed the console. A metallic thrum echoed beneath the floor. That's why I'm activating Project Forge Heart. Mark froze. His jaw tightened. You're serious? Deadly. He sank into a chair. You know what they'll do to us if we use it. They can add it to their list, she said. We need something that can confront the swarm head-on. Forgeheart is the only vessel designed for that. Mark blew out a breath. Then you'll need a crew. I already have candidates, she said. Anyone willing to act rather than wait. Mark studied her for a moment, then nodded. You'll have mine. One down. She walked to the briefing chamber, where recruits had assembled after the council hearing. Engineers, pilots, medics, and technicians stood in a half-circle, some still wearing embassy uniforms, others in field gear. A few were civilians, volunteers who refused to sit idle while the galaxy debated its own demise. Rhea stepped to the front. If you're here, you read the beacon data. The swarm isn't creeping. It's accelerating. The Concorde won't move until every species signs off on a plan, and by then we'll be out of time. One of the volunteers, a short mechanic with grease-streaked sleeves, raised her hand. What's the plan then? We going to charge the swarm with embassy shuttles? No, Rhea said. We're taking something built for a crisis like this. She tapped a control. The wall behind her shimmered, revealing a vast hangar. Rows of telescoping gantries surrounded a colossal vessel suspended in magnetic harnesses. Its hull gleamed with layered alloys and dark plating, and along its spine ran a network of forging coils capable of reshaping raw stellar matter. The air shifted with collective awe. This, Rhea said, is the Forgeheart. A murmur rippled through the room. Mark stepped forward, pointing at the glowing diagram. Forgeheart is a mobile fabrication warship. It can harvest matter from stellar coronas, forge specialized ordnance mid-engagement, and adapt to hostile environments. Humanity built it for a threat the Concorde refused to acknowledge. A pilot whistled softly. So we're taking a Star Eater into battle. Rhea smiled faintly. A Star Forger. We'll use it to hold the line. Another voice rose from the crowd. What happens when the Concorde finds out? Rhea's expression hardened. They'll try to stop us. And we'll be gone before they can. The room settled into a resolute silence. Mark glanced around. We need teams assigned. Engine specialists, coil technicians, nav officers. Rhea cut in. I want volunteers only. No one leaves this room under orders. Hands rose. All of them. Hours later, the hangar buzzed with coordinated motion. Humans darted between scaffolds, calibrating thrusters, testing forge coil output, and synchronizing the vessel's AI. Sparks showered from welding arms as plates locked into place. Rhea oversaw everything with precise calm. Power cycle, she called. The main reactor hummed to life. Golden lines pulsed along the vessel's spine, lighting the hangar in warm light. The forging coils crackled, then settled into a stable glow. Mark's voice came through her comm coil integrity confirmed. Fabricators online. Good, Rhea replied. Prepare the star lattice. On the bridge platform, she met the ship's AI core, an orb of shifting fractals suspended in containment fields. It spoke with a crisp tone. Commander Van Sen. Designation recognized. Operational authority transferred. Awaiting mission parameters. Null swarm interception, she said. Calculate a trajectory to the frontier systems. Trajectory plotted. Estimated conflict zones exceed safe thresholds. She snorted. Safety isn't our priority. Understood. As she stepped off the bridge, Mark intercepted her. Rhea, a few of the smaller species are requesting a meeting. Quietly. She raised an eyebrow. Allies? Maybe. They're afraid of the swarm and don't trust the Concorde's delays. Set it up, she said. Minutes later, representatives from 3 minor species appeared via encrypted HoloLink-scaled Litari explorers, bright-eyed Kelton merchants, and silent Rowan observers whose four-lens eyes flickered with anxiety. The Litari spoke first. Commander, we heard what happened in the council. We believe your warning. The Kelton added, our scouts vanished near the fringe. The Concorde dismissed our reports. Rhea's voice softened. Join us. We can't face this alone. We have no warships, the Litari admitted, but we'll provide navigational data and supply caches. Every advantage helps, she said. The Rowan representative leaned forward. Be swift, human. If the swarm reaches our worlds, we will not endure. The link faded. Mark exhaled. That's more support than I expected. They understand danger better than their leaders, Rhea said. But the moment ended as the embassy lights dimmed. A harsh alarm echoed through the corridors. Incoming council order. Cease all launch preparations. Forge Heart is to be seized immediately. Mark cursed under his breath. They moved fast. Rhea strode toward the command deck. So do we. Concorde shuttles descended toward the hangar, their engines shrieking across the embassy exterior. Security teams scrambled to block access, but they were outnumbered. The council wasn't waiting anymore. Rhea opened a channel to the entire crew. All personnel, initiate lockdown protocols and board Forge Heart immediately. We launch tonight. Mark's voice crackled through in reply. Understood. As the hangar's blast doors sealed and the ship's systems roared to life, Rhea took her place on the bridge. This wasn't rebellion. It was survival. Forge Heart awakened under her command, and the galaxy was about to find out what humans did when no one else dared to act. The hangar echoed with the metallic roar of engines warming to life. Blue ignition trails lit the floor as Forge Heart's thrusters pulsed in steady intervals. Above the ship, red warning lights spun in tight arcs, bathing the scaffolding in sharp color. Every crew member moved with a quiet urgency, precise, focused, determined. Concorde shuttles just touched down outside the west gate, Mark reported, hurrying beside Rhea as she crossed the command deck. They're armed. They're not here to talk. Rhea didn't break stride. Then we launch before they reach the hangar. Security cameras streamed footage across the central display. Concorde soldiers in polished armor advanced through the embassy courtyard, their rifles slung but powered. At the front marched 2 council enforcers, massive multi-limbed beings built for authority and intimidation. Their arrival left no room for interpretation. Rhea activated the intercom. All stations, prepare for rapid sequence launch. This is not a drill. The crew responded instantly. The bridge filled with the sound of systems activating, thrusters spooling, stabilizers humming, magnetic clamps releasing one by one. The floor trembled as the vessel's mass shifted in its cradle. Mark tapped his tablet. Rhea, they cut power to the hangar doors. She turned sharply. Switch Forge Heart to internal supply. He grinned. Already did. Emergency conduits flared, flooding the facility with backup current. The doors groaned back to motion. On the security feeds, Concorde troops entered the lower corridor. Their captain, a tall insectoid with translucent wings folded tight against his back, spoke through a translator field. Commander Van Sen, stand down. You are in violation of Concorde mandate. Rhea stepped onto a raised platform and patched through a response. You refused to act. We won't die for your hesitation. This launch is unauthorized, the captain said. Open the hangar and disembark from the vessel. Now. Rhea muted the channel. Mark, seal internal gates. The heavy doors slid shut, blocking the soldiers from the hangar. Mark exhaled. Won't slow them long. It doesn't need to, she said. The bridge crew awaited her command. Navigation Officer Lyra adjusted her controls with steady hands. Chief Engineer Osric hovered near the reactor panel, awaiting final verification. Everyone knew the stakes. Everyone understood the consequences. Rhea sat in the captain's chair and fastened the harness. Initiate launch cycle. Cycle confirmed, Lyra replied. Forge Heart's engines surged, causing the entire structure to vibrate. The scaffolds released in a cascade of magnetic snaps. The ship shifted forward with a low rumble. Alarms blared across the control panels. Mark frowned. Concorde assault teams are breaching the access tunnel. They're cutting through the final lock. Then we're out of time, Rhea said. Lift off. The thrusters ignited in a burst of gold. The vessel rose, dust and debris swirling beneath it. Automated clamps retracted, clearing the launch path. Suddenly, a sharp explosion shook the lower decks. Mark pulled up a feed. They fired on the support platforms. They're trying to cripple us. Rhea tightened her grip. Divert power to lower shields. Osric complied, rerouting energy through the hull plating. Forge heart steadied. The hangar doors were halfway open. Then the comm crackled with a new voice, cold, authoritative. Commander Van Sen, this is High Delegate Threxiel Varuan. Cease your launch immediately. Rhea didn't answer at first. She stared ahead, watching the widening gap of the hangar mouth and the starfield beyond. This ship is humanity's property, Threxiel continued. Unauthorized departure will trigger sanctions on Earth and all its colonies. Rhea unmuted. The swarm won't wait for your paperwork. You are destabilizing interstellar order, Threxiel snapped. Return to the dock. Rhea's voice turned to steel. Interstellar order means nothing if the galaxy is gone. His tone darkened. If you leave, you will not be welcomed back. Then I'll return when the null swarm is destroyed, she said, and you can decide whether that's worth welcoming. She shut off the channel. The hangar shook again, another blast from the Concorde team. Shields at 30%, Osric warned. Hangar doors at 80%, Lyra said. Prepare for emergency thrust, Rhea ordered. We're pushing through. Concorde forces finally breached the internal gates. Dozens of soldiers flooded into the hangar, weapons raised. They fired stun rounds toward the ascending vessel. Blue volleys crackled against the underside of the hull. The ship shuddered. Mark clenched the console. Rhea, they're targeting the stabilizers. They'll have to hit us harder, she replied. The hangar doors reached full extension. Punch it. Forge heart surged forward, leaving the hangar in a blazing sweep of thruster light. The shockwave knocked soldiers off their feet as the ship cleared the platform and soared into open sky. Air pressure howled across the hull as they climbed through the atmosphere. Clouds streaked in white arcs along the viewport. The engines roared like a starstorm. Mark slumped back. We're out. For now. Rhea didn't relax. Concorde fleets won't let us go easily. Lyra raised her head. Incoming ships, multiple signatures. Concorde patrol units forming a web around the orbital lanes. The display lit up with blue icons. A blockade. They're serious about stopping us, Osric muttered. Rhea leaned forward. Plot a microjump. Short range. Just past their net. Lyra hesitated. A microjump inside the gravity well risks a cascade. We don't have alternatives, Rhea said. Set the coordinates. Lyra input the trajectory, fingers swift but steady. Mark swallowed. If the calculations are even slightly off, we'll be vaporized, Rhea finished. Yes. She met his eyes. No fear. Only certainty. Engage when ready. Lyra's voice was calm. Jump coils charged. Initiating. The stars smeared into streaks of silver. A jolt rippled through the ship as reality warped. Gravity seemed to fold inward, then snap. Forge heart reappeared in deep orbit, far beyond the blockade. Alarms quieted. The screens stabilized. The crew released collective breaths. Mark leaned back. We did it. Rhea allowed herself a small smile. Course to the frontier? Plotted and confirmed, Lyra said. Rhea gazed at the distant starfield, darker, colder, stretching toward the unknown. Far beyond lay the swarm's growing shadow. Humanity had defied the Concorde. There was no turning back. She sat straighter, voice firm. Set heading for Kappa 4. Full burn. Forge heart's engines brightened, propelling the ship toward the edge of known space. Behind them, the Concorde scrambled. Ahead, the null swarm waited. Rhea felt the weight of the galaxy pressing upon her shoulders, but she didn't waver. If no one else would fight, humanity would. And they would win. Kappa 4 had once been a thriving trade system. When Forge heart dropped from hyperspace, nothing remained but fractured asteroid belts drifting through a pall of metallic dust. The star at the center burned faintly, its corona scarred by enormous void-like shadows. The null swarm had carved its mark here, cold, methodical, absolute. Rhea stood at the bridge windows, staring at the remnants. They didn't just consume the colonies, she said. They stripped the planets to the core. Mark's eyes tracked a cloud of black fragments swirling near the broken orbit. Those used to be stations. Lyra magnified the viewing feed. Amid the drifting rubble, angular shapes glinted with a dull silver sheen, the remains of swarm drones, some still twitching as if their last commands hadn't fully died. Osric checked his readings. Life signs, 0. Power signatures, minimal. He swallowed. Commander, this system is dead. Rhea didn't turn. Then we don't let it happen again. Before another word could form, Lyra's console blared an alert. Multiple contacts. They're coming out of the star's corona. From the molten glare emerged sleek, sharpened silhouettes, null swarm interceptors. Their movements were too smooth, too precise. They glided like blades through liquid gold. Mark tensed. They were hiding in the corona. Clever. Not clever, Rhea corrected. Efficient. The drones spread in a crescent formation, weaving a net around Forgeheart's trajectory. Lyra gripped her controls. If they encircle us, we'll be cut apart. Then we hit them before they finish the pattern, Rhea said. Mark, activate the forging core. The ship's heart awakened with a deep resonance. Golden arcs of energy danced along the hull, and the forging coils glowed with the light of captured stellar plasma. Osric laughed under his breath. They wanted a fight. They're about to get educated. Forgeheart fired the first volley, an array of forged solar lances streaking across the void. The beams tore through the closest interceptors, scattering molten fragments in bright spirals. But the swarm adapted instantly. The remaining drones shifted formation, bodies widening into shield-like surfaces that absorbed the residual energy. Others reconfigured into elongated spear shapes and lunged forward. Brace, Lyra warned. Impacts rattled the hull as the drones struck. One slammed into the portside plating, embedding itself like a parasite and drilling inward with surgical precision. Osric cursed. They're trying to peel us apart. Rhea hit the comm maintenance crews, suit up and get to the breach point. Cut those things off the hull before they penetrate the coil conduits. A sharp voice replied, On it, Commander. On external cams, engineers floated along the hull, wielding plasma torches and magnetic anchors. Sparks erupted as they severed the drone's limbs, kicking the machine into open space before it detonated. On the bridge, Mark wiped sweat from his brow. These things evolve faster than we can adapt. Rhea replied, Then we stop letting them dictate the fight. She turned to Lyra. Take us toward the star. Lyra's head snapped up. Commander, that's suicide. No, Rhea said. That's strategy. They hide in solar layers. We use the same environment to disrupt them. Forgeheart descended into the star's upper corona, where radiation flares pulsed with chaotic intensity. The hull shimmered under the brutal heat, but the forging coils stabilized, acting as both shield and conduit. The swarm followed, but their movements grew less precise as the turbulence deepened. Mark watched their formation fracture. It's messing with their coordination. That's our window, Rhea said. Osric, prepare the superheated starshot. He blinked. That cannon hasn't been tested. It's about to be. Osric keyed the sequence. The forging core extracted raw plasma, condensing it into a throbbing sphere of unstable fire. The weapons chamber groaned, metal flexing under the pressure. Shot is ready, Osric announced. Firing on your command. Rhea pointed at the densest cluster of drones. Let it loose. Forgeheart unleashed the starshot. The projectile tore across the corona, trailing a burning vortex. When it hit, the blast expanded in a luminous shockwave, vaporizing the entire cluster. The resulting turbulence shredded the remaining drone's cohesion. The tactical map blinked clear. Silence fell on the bridge. Mark exhaled. We won that round, but where's the core node? Every swarm fleet has a controlling heart. A faint signal pinged on Lyra's console, deep below the corona, near the cusp of the star's inner convection layer. There, she said quietly. The source. Rhea stared at the reading. The location was suicidal, inside the star's unstable shell. Osric frowned. Forgeheart can survive limited exposure, but not full descent. Then we don't descend, Rhea said. We collapse the star. Mark froze. You want to trigger a controlled implosion using the forging coils? Yes. That'll convert the star into a microsupernova, he said. We'll be vaporized. Not if we're at the right angle and distance, she replied. We ride the edge of the shockwave and let the core burn itself out. Lyra shook her head. A miscalculation by even half a second. I know, Rhea said softly. But if the swarm reaches populated space, there won't be anything left to miscalculate. The crew didn't argue again. They trusted her. Osric triggered the coil overload sequence. Energy surged through the spine, and Forgeheart positioned itself along a precise vector. Rhea opened a channel to the entire ship. This is Commander Van Sen. In a moment, we're going to do something no vessel was built to do. If we survive, the galaxy gets a chance. If we don't, we strike a blow that cripples the enemy. Whatever happens, know this: humanity didn't run. It stood where others refused. And it made its mark. The ship vibrated as the forging coils descended into critical flux. Mark whispered, "Here we go." The coils discharged. A beam of condensed gravitational force plunged into the star's surface, punching into its heart. The star quaked. Light flared, swelling into an impossible brightness. Shockwave forming, Osric shouted. Brace for impact. The explosion erupted. A ring of white fire expanded outward, engulfing the inner system. Forgeheart strained against the force, hull screaming under the torrent. Energy surged through the shields. The ship spun, rocked, skidded against the storm, but held. Rhea gritted her teeth, gripping the chair. Hold together, hold together. Finally, the pressure broke. Silence fell. The displays cleared. The swarm's signal was gone. Mark stared, stunned. We destroyed their core. Osric slumped back. Forgeheart survived the impossible. Lyra smiled weakly. Commander, we did it. Rhea allowed herself one slow breath. Relief washed through her, not triumph, but a deeper, quieter certainty. Set course back to Concord space, she said. It's time they hear the news. Forgeheart turned toward the stars it had just saved. And somewhere, in the shattered silence of Kappa 4, the galaxy felt a shift, a realization that humanity had stepped into a new role, not as bystanders or petitioners, but as the ones who acted when others refused. Humanity had drawn its line in fire. And the universe would remember.